So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted that we have with us Stuart Warrington, who's the CEO at Invoke. So Stuart, firstly, thanks for coming on board and spending some time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Invoke to the audience, what you do and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, hey Chris, thanks for having me. Yeah, Invoke. Where to start really? Because there's two companies, there's Superla and Invoke, and they sort
Yep.
of go hand in hand to create something that we've built over the last 10 years. So my name's Stuart. I was a is the past tense. I am still and was a filmmaker for about 20 years, a filmmaker and editor, and animator, and did lots of corporate comms for businesses, I'd say.
Yep.
Um, Superla is a media production company. It does film, animation, and games for businesses. And Invoke is a virtual demo platform that we built almost by accident. And it span out of Superla and has become a SaaS model business, software as a service model
Yep.
business that delivers the capacity for biotech and medical companies specifically to demo their product to the world.
Wow.
And that's what Invoke is like this, like I said, this thing that started as a sort of a happy accident and has
Yep.
grown to be this bigger beast that deals with some of the biggest companies on the planet to give them an option to to do whatever their product deserves. Like it needs to be a virtual demo, you need video from it, you need stills from it, you need to be able to go to an event and have it on a screen there. That's what Invoke does. And it's bred out of Superla, and the two things are sort of constantly entwined in a beautiful dance with each other.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Wonderful. Absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating. So you mentioned a little bit about your background in
Mhm.
what you've done previously. How did you sort of transfer from that into this business, and why these particular businesses for you?
So I had a thing. So I did film and animation as an idea. I didn't. I got kicked out of uni. I failed miserably at A level, and I didn't get a single GCSE. So the path needs to be like you need to do something. You need to achieve something, and film was like a straightforward enough thing to reach for, just because you I was into it, and I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg or Stanley Kubrick or whatever. That was the goal. And you realize quite quickly that film's quite a ubiquitous thing and it exists everywhere. So fundamentally, you end up making corporate videos, and that's fine. That's where you make your career from.
Yep.
And I was I started learning at the dawning of digital media. So it's transitioned from sort of film to mini DV, there's these mini digital videotapes, to full digital uh, content, and it meant that there was this boom in film and animation that everybody wanted film and animation. So it was really easy to cut your teeth by making loads of content for companies because there was just a massive appetite for it.
Yep.
So that's how I sort of started on the path. And I learned how to film and how to edit, and then I got into animation, got into 3D animation, then I got into making games for companies. I joined that process. We set up Superla. I set up Superla because I couldn't work very well for other people because the
Yep.
company I was working for was not a very nice company, and they were based in Leeds, and I worked with them for a bit, and it just didn't work well. The guy was quite toxic, and I was making adverts for betting companies. I was like, I don't think this really sits with what I want. Ethically, it doesn't, but
Yep.
also having some sense of drive, working for somebody else and being held to their decisions was just not fitting with how I was wanting to work.
Yep.
So I set up Superla off the back of leaving that company and going like, I want to do things my way, which is
Yep.
different to the way that person was doing it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So what was sort of film always something you wanted to do growing up, or did you
I
never
think
sort of go
growing
into?
up's a weird question, right? Because it largely you just want to be like people go like when you're a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was either in my era, it was a footballer or
Yep.
James Bond, right? They were the only two options. And it quickly dawned that I didn't have the drive, determination, or skill to be a footballer. And I just wasn't suave enough to be James Bond. I think it was the only reason I could be James Bond, because I wasn't suave enough. And so it was not just a desire and an obsession with watching a lot of films, because Jack
Yeah,
Beanstalk Video, where I used to rent videos from, was like down at the end of the road. So me and my brother would just rent videos. That's all we would do. So
brilliant.
it was just like basically just absorb yourself with video content. And then when you start seeing that there's a possibility that's a career path, and you go like, I'm going to direct the next John Carpenter film. I'm going to be his. I think, you know, that it doesn't matter that that's not the point that you end at, because on the
Yeah,
journey you realize that end point is only part of an industry,
yeah,
and if this
yes,
industry is colossal, and you can
yeah.
find your way to something else.
Brilliant, absolutely fantastic. And am I right in thinking on your website you've got under each individual person there's a quote? Are they all film quotes?
I believe they are film quotes. Yeah, I can't remember. It's been a while since we did them, so I'm gonna have to have a look now at the
Because
website.
I like films. I always
Yeah.
consider myself a bit of a, but I can only spot 2 or 3 quotes there. So they were yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. These are all from films. Yeah.
Brilliant.
My one, I'm just not used to being chased around a mall in the middle of the night by killer robots. Is from an 80s horror, like straight to VHS film called Chopping Mall, which is a film about a bunch it's sort of like a mix of Die Hard and The Terminator.
Brilliant.
It's low budget, all filmed in this shopping mall in the middle of the night in America, and
Fantastic.
these robots roll. That was the sort of films that I used to watch. So yeah, everyone's quote is a film quote.
Brilliant. I'm going to search some of them up.
You've got it's on Amazon Prime. Go and watch it. It's phenomenal as a film.
Let's
It
do
is
it.
Campers Christmas, but it is great with it.
Let's do it. No, I'll definitely do that. I'm going to research some of the other ones
Yeah,
because I think I picked up. There's definitely meaning of life in there, and I think
yeah,
it's Miyagi, and I think Pulp Fiction, but I'm not totally sure on that one. But
yeah. To be honest, I'm looking at them. I can't remember most of them.
I think
So,
they're really
um,
obscure ones. Well, for me, they're obscure anyway. So yeah, really cool.
yeah, yeah. I think because yeah, like I said, there's Superla and there's Invoke. The Invoke one's way more business focused, right? That's less
Right.
about film quotes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
But you know, from my perspective, I think even in business, it's good to know about the people you're going to work with. So you know that sort of
yeah,
make people more human. The people is wonderful.
yeah,
So if you look back over your career and the 2
yeah.
businesses you created, what would you say some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome?
Cash flow.
Yep.
It's like the biggest
Yep.
one. This is always the bet. Separating myself from cash was a big thing. Separating yourself from how it was draining you and fundamentally crushing you. So that was probably the biggest challenge as a startup. Going, we need somebody who's going to manage the cash and going to manage chasing the customers, and also be there when it's like you've got 4 weeks left of runway here, and someone to have visibility on that. Because if you do it as a person who's running the company, you should have visibility on it, right? But
Yep.
if it's understanding that can be somebody else's full-time job,
Yes.
and then you can crack on with
Yep.
all the random crap that you want to do over here, right?
Yes.
But somebody can sit there and go like, we need to talk because you've got less
Yep.
than X amount of time on this, and you need to know when to push and when to hold, right? So
Yep.
most businesses sit there and go, we need to sales all the time, sales all the time. But that's not realistic. I think you have to do things in waves.
Yep.
And like at the moment, we're on this massive new business push because we're like, we've got capacity and we've got runway, and we need
Yep.
the 2 things to match up. So that was probably the biggest learning or the biggest challenge was cash flow, because it used to be the biggest headache I ever had. Every month it'd be like, holy shit, where's the money?
Yep.
And then when somebody else started managing that, I just didn't really think about that anymore.
Right. It's brilliant, isn't it? Because and you can put, we can put our confidence in someone else because it's their job,
Yeah,
and I also find collection of cash by a third party is better than by the owner because it can become a very emotional thing because we see it
of course you can. Yeah,
as our money and therefore we can get very emotive. Whereas somebody
yeah,
just following a system, a process, even a script of what they say and how they say it could be
yeah.
done very unemotionally. So that makes sense.
We have
Um,
been a bit more we've been more selective of who we work with based on the we have 10 years experience at Superla, and Invoke doesn't work with people who won't pay, because it just works with massive companies. And I know massive companies sometimes don't pay, but it's the truth of the matter is sometimes you just end up on like 60 to 90-day terms with them. Superla used to work with like anybody who wanted to make a video. But the problem with that is you work with SMEs and they just be like trying to get blood from a stone, trying to get the money off them. So we sort of made a decision to not really work with those companies anymore and just go big blue chip companies that are floated and they have a system. It might be painful to follow the system, but you will get paid.
Yes. Yeah. And again, there's a lot less emotion in the whole situation, isn't there? Because it's not my money, it's the money I'm managing. And
exactly. To those people, as long as they've raised the PO, they don't care. Like, they want the project done. To raise the PO, the company goes, we'll raise the PO, the money's allocated. They're not going to suddenly start. We work with like Roche and O2. At Superla, I work with companies like that. It's just like
brilliant.
Roche and O2 and Santander, stuff like that. Like they don't care. They just say, yeah, whatever, just get the job done.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. And so, looking at sort of what you've learned, what would be some of the biggest learnings you've had about business and business as you've grown it?
Managing risk is probably the best thing. Managing your own risk of what you want to do. So Invoke was a risk born out of born out of a challenge that a customer had that said, we were making films, we were making games for companies. They were all comms games and comms videos and stuff like that. And somebody came to us with a challenge from a big biotech company called Thermo Fisher Scientific, like massive company, like 44 billion, so anyway, huge things. And they were like, we struggle to qualify leads. So when we get a lead in, we put a lot of focus and effort on getting them a product to demo to them, and it's not qualified particularly well because you can't qualify some things well. And it means that you end up possibly talking to the wrong person. You can't get your calendars to sync up. You can't ship a product out to somebody particularly easily, and it's costing like $11,000 per demo that you're doing. And they were like, "There's a big cost saving there that we could do if we were better at making sure we're talking to the right people. Could you come up with a solution that would potentially fix that?" And that's where we made the risk decision to go, they need a video game. They might not want to call it a video game, but that's ultimately what they need. So we hired some devs and we went full steam to solve an issue for them, created them an alpha, demoed it to them, and they went, that's what we want, that's what we need. And the business grew out of that. But the risk, calculating that risk, was looking at something going like, it wasn't like sat there working out stuff. There wasn't a SWOT analysis on this stuff. It was a feeling that was like, there is a problem for that industry over there that I didn't even know existed. And it is a colossal problem of wasted cash that we could probably help these companies support.
Yes.
And that was the biggest learning, was knowing that sometimes your gut reaction to the risk is the thing that you should follow, because to trust yourself a little bit. I suppose that sounds really wanky, that, doesn't it? It sounds like an art, but ultimately that was the thing. It was like, and trying to get the business to bend. So Superla had to bend to Invoke's will to build it. It took a lot of time, a lot of resource, and almost, many times almost completely bankrupted Superla to support Invoke. But Invoke has this ability to scale to this massive size. So it's like, there's a risk we're taking. Because ultimately, what the fuck are we doing anyway? Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this thing. You may have to bleep me out.
I think you have, so that's okay.
Right, okay. I was there years ago, knowing the Billy Connolly quote, "There's no such thing as bad language, there's only bad use of language." So I was like, to me, that was a free tick to say what I wanted, whatever I wanted to say.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, so that was it. Managing risk, understanding how to manage your own level of risk. Like, what risky situation do you want to put you and your company into?
Yes,
and knowing the feeling.
And that's really interesting, because you said it's a feeling and stuff, and it is. I think it's a big part of, if we use the word entrepreneurial, whatever you want to call it, it's an overused phrase. But I think part of successful businesses is someone willing to take, to overcome the feelings of fear, and there isn't really, as you said, often a formula, a mathematical formula you can use to say
No.
it is 36.3% likely to happen or not happen. And
It's
so,
bollocks because ultimately, like you end up like which side of that do you want to focus on? The bit that's going to be right. So you go 77% chance that our thing's going to work, and then you go, okay, yeah, but there's a 23% chance it's not going to work. It's like,
yes,
well, which side do you want to fall on? Because if it doesn't
yep,
work, it doesn't work, and if it works, it works. Like those equations stop mattering. It's like if you believe something with enough conviction and put
yeah,
enough work in to it. I'm not like doing that bollocks sort of like ask the universe for something that gives you is like, no, have an idea and a concept and put your all
yes,
into it to manage the risk that way.
yeah, absolutely. And it, for me, it starts with clarity of what the end looks like, and then we move towards it. And then it's a how
Yeah.
question, isn't
Yeah.
it? How do we?
You think even when you do that, though, you put something at the end, and you go, "That's what we're aiming for," and it's like you will have to understand that you will deviate from that path, and you might never end up at that bit because
Yes,
you're led to a certain degree of what people want. And when you make something, we've made this platform, and it started as one thing, and is now way more because you
brilliant.
suddenly, as you start entering into the space, people go like, "Can I have this?" And they project onto your idea,
Yep,
and then you start taking from those the ideas that you want to follow. So we go like, "We're this thing here," and actually, you end up being this web of things rather than this straight line between a
yep,
concept and a delivery.
brilliant. But it's that willingness to take that first step that I think that stuns people out.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. It's
only
because it's a big
40.
commitment. It's
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard work. Life is really fucking hard work, right? So if you have an idea and you don't fully commit to it and be prepared for it, it won't work because you know yourself. You're not if you're not willing to commit to it. Why would anybody else commit to it?
yeah, 100%, 100%. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Um, brilliant, brilliant. So you're probably aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm
Mhm.
just keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, or just life in general. Who
So
are the
I'm
big?
quite bad with coaches. We've tried it in the past, and largely I will get on with anybody, but it's whether people will get on with me is usually the challenge. So, and I am we we've had people try and coach us in the past, as me individually or us as a business,
Yep.
and what we came up against was it was quite a broken industry for us because it looked at something somebody had already done and worked for them and then tried to project that onto you.
That's not
Uh,
coaching. Yeah.
yeah, I know. So we had one of the things that we've got on in our deck that we show to potential investors and stuff like that is that there's this big piece of copy that says we don't work with bedroom developers, which was said to me by a guy who I really respected, ran an agency in Leeds, who we were talking about acquiring Sweet and stuff like that at one point. Really respected him, went to him with Invoke as a business and said, "This is what we've built." And he said, "The thing is, we don't work with bedroom developers." And I was
Right.
like, you were someone I respected, but this is the way you see me. And that
Yeah.
really changed it. I was like, coaches and stuff, the ones we've experienced, the ones we worked with in the past, have a perception of you or have had a perception of us. And that's there for many. They're trying to coach us to be something that they predetermined was going to be the case. And it's not really worked. They're not like looked at us, for me, for example, and gone like, that guy is a ball of chaos and can be great for the business, can be a down side to the business. How do we make this all fit together as a puzzle? I think the best person I ever worked with was a mentor, a woman called Alison Surtees, who I worked with 20 years ago. And what I learned from her was that the work ethic is ultimately the only thing that matters. Because I just observed the way that this person worked, and she was like, if there is a moment in the day, in your official working day, that you're sat down not doing anything, you're faffing around on a game or you're watching a YouTube video, it's like, get fucking working. Like, that's what she would do. And that set in stone the work ethic, which was if this is right, this just needs to be done. So get it
Yes.
done. So that was a long-winded answer to say that I'm potentially uncoachable, but work hard at it.
Good. No, good. Now, I'm not. What I want to do is just slightly defend the coaching
Mate,
profession.
because the thing, no,
No, no,
again,
no,
I'm
no.
going against, yeah,
But the reason is just for
yeah,
people that might be watching this is that what it feels like you had was advice. It was people telling. That's
yeah,
not
yeah,
coaching. So coaching for me is helping people find their way through.
yeah, yeah,
So, and the proposition for me is that we've already got enough information within us to find whatever we need to
yeah,
do. The job of a coach is to help people find that way through.
yeah,
So anyone that says you should do it this way isn't coaching you; they're telling
yeah.
you. And
I'm not against the idea of coaching. I think that there is a lot of snake oil in it. There's a lot of people who are like, I'll tell you how to make millions, right? That exists, and I think
yes,
those things can put
absolutely.
you off, right? I think for like people in the team, for example, we're already talking to people to how to coach our CTO to be better at what they're doing, or how
Yeah,
to come on board as non-exec directors and things like that. That come on board and not tell us, but help us and guide us. People who are used to working with people like myself, but people who are used to work like people in my business want to get better,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
very aware that that cannot come from me. It has to come from somebody else. So we are more than open to it as a concept. It's just it's my experience with it is sometimes
yeah.
leading it, and that's the problem.
It's a real it's a real it's a real shame in many ways for me and just as an academic discussion, but a lot of people call themselves coaches that actually don't do coaching, and
Yeah,
therefore
yeah,
it
yeah.
gets misunderstood. But sorry, this wasn't
Oh,
not
mate, don't worry about it. Look, I would
let's
talk
move
about
on.
this. I'll talk about this as the cows come home, right? Yeah. So the thing, I had a conversation. I've got a friend of mine who does a lot of coaching, right? But to me, what they're doing isn't coaching. They are doing like self-help retreats with someone
Right.
where they go and stroke a horse or whatever, or go and one of them does the running over hot coals. And I'm like, if this is going to sound really dismissive, and you cut this out all you want, right? But there is a
No,
thing
no,
where
no. Staying in.
there's
Staying
there's a
in.
there's a bunch of ones that you can see online and gets advertised on LinkedIn all the time. It's like, I am a coach and I will tell you how to get better at business. And I see that and go, do not give those people your money, because what they will get is they do it in therapy quite a lot. It's like, that's not lasting change. If you go and just sit and see someone do a TED talk and go, I'm going to do all of that, it doesn't affect you in any way,
Yep.
because all you've done is gone, I've watched this inspirational talk from person X, and they said, put more money in gold. So I put all my money in gold and nothing happened. You're like, well, what did you think? Because you didn't arrive at anything yourself,
Yep.
and you have to arrive at solutions yourself. You can't be told, because if you are,
100%.
everything goes wrong. So that's why I'm always I'm semi-skeptical on anything that feels like it's the snake oil to heal
Yeah, yeah.
everything.
It's interesting. Two things just that might be interesting. One is it's our founder Brad Chiggers is a serial entrepreneur. One thing he says is he won't be called a motivational speaker. People say, "Oh, that's
Yeah,
the best." He says
yeah,
because motivation just makes idiots do dumb shit faster. Uh,
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah,
but the other thing for me, and this takes me back a long time because I've been doing this for a long time. And when I first trained, I was told, and it's stuck with me since then, that the word education comes from the word, I think it's the Latin word educare,
right.
which means to draw out.
Hmm.
And I,
Rather than push, yeah. Instead of like
yeah,
forcing information in,
yeah,
you
traditional
can
education.
read all the fucking business books that you want, but fundamentally, it will not stick unless you start trying things and failing.
Well,
And I think people reach for things. I said to this guy I know, I was like, if the people doing the motivational speaking weekend were honest and they're like, come here and I'll tell you how to run a business better. Well, their business is to take your money off you, right? So if they were
yes,
honest, they'd go, what you need to do is persuade a bunch of people to come into a room and listen to you fucking talk about nothing. Like, that is their business model. And I sit there and go, like, that's not helping anybody. And that's why I come across like an absolute arsehole with it. I'm not trying. I find
no,
I try and sniff out a scam, and I don't like scamming people. And I think that some people are so open to, I need help with my business. Like, well, you need help to draw it out of yourself.
yep.
Not, I'm going to do this thing that this man told me, which is I get up every morning and put cucumber on my eyes and then lie down for 50 minutes. Like, what the hell are you on about?
You're a very cynical man, are you? I can
I'm
say.
not that cynical. I'm very optimistic. The thing is, I'm completely optimistic. I'm going to come across so badly on this.
No,
I'm really
no.
optimistic, and I'm like, I believe in like people finding things out for themselves and finding the things that they can do.
Just so we both clear, what you're saying is what lots of other people think. So
Right,
it absolutely bang on. And it's interesting actually that we do a lot of work with a guy called Marcus Sheridan,
right.
who he's from the US. He does a lot. He's got a marketing. What's the right word? The ethos behind what he says. He's written a book called "They Ask, We Answer."
Right.
And what he's saying is, let's not tell people how great we are. Let's answer the questions they really want to know.
Sure.
Right. So things like how much it costs, because most websites will say, well, obviously the price varies on the.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Give an idea. Average thing would be this. But the other thing he says, answer the questions that people want to answer, but don't want to ask. Like, is this just snake oil sales? And that should be the question. Well, and answer the question. I'm not going to answer it right now, but it would be, this isn't because. And if you answer that question, because if you're asking it, lots of other people are, and I completely agree that unfortunately, I think until our profession is regulated, we're going to have this challenge.
You're going to get it. I mean, it's like the people have a need to find support with things, right? And that is the core of most people's life. There's a reason we get in relationships with people. There's a reason we stay in communication with our parents, for example, because you need support on things. But that can be taken advantage of. And that's what I'm very guarded about is going, worst case scenario, mate, you're going to have to do it yourself anyway. So crack on. Right. So like, that's the thing that you sort of end up flipping between but now that changed like a lot within Vogue. I'm looking at going like, we need external parties in. We need people and we need people to guide people where we need to be, because you can get something so far, you need help to kick it on to the next level.
And there is a place, and it's not so much what we do, although we do a bit of it. There is a place for what I would call consulting, i.e., being told what to do. So this isn't about the business as a whole, but that's like, we want to know how to create an effective sales script for selling this, or some, and that's when that help can be really useful. So we're obviously getting off on one both.
No, man, don't worry about it. Like I said, I did a podcast a few years ago with one of my friends who does a lot of this stuff. It was called The Day the Dog Came Into the Office, right? We did like 13 episodes, because in my head, that was the thing that people remember about work. So you ask people about work and their working lives, they can't tell you day to day what they did, but they will be able to tell you the day that their boss brought their dog in, right?
Yeah.
I was like, those are the things I remember about work. I don't remember like working at other companies and like what did you say in a stand-up meeting? I haven't got a clue, but I played with that dog for 15 minutes on my lunch break, and it was fun. So we did this podcast about that, and it was about how do you get through these things, and that in a way was this cathartic support that you actually needed, was to go somewhere and just say, this is the shit that's gone on this week, and that person says it back to you, their shit, and you go like, oh, I'm not alone in this. That in a weird way you end up, you're sort of describing a therapy session rather than a therapy session with a goal, and the goal is to get your businesses in like shape and properly, right? That's sort of what I think that sometimes you need from this, because sometimes most people are just ultimately lost in the thing that they're trying to do, and they just need re-guiding back onto it a bit.
It's just helping, but for me, it's helping people get clarity of thought when there's so much crap going around on a day-to-day basis. Most people that we work with are consistently up to the neck in muck and bullets, and they can't.
And I fundamentally believe in that, because what you do, you might have a session with somebody. It's like, we'll have an hour session. We'll just talk about the business. We've just gone through some this big tech review for all the tech, and we did 3 2-hour sessions on the tech. Day to day, me and the CTO, we get bogged down in client requests and everything else. This, with an external party helping us with this tech review, spent time going, holy shit, we've come this far. We've come so very, very far that you sometimes forget how far you've come.
Yeah.
And that was really, really beneficial. I think that's what coaching can do. But that's because that can get shrouded in go back to the stakeholder thing, it can be taken advantage of. And that's why we try and guard from that, really.
100%. I mean, it's got to be about delivering value and those sorts of things. But
of course.
No, totally get it. They're really fascinating. I'm glad we had that conversation.
Yeah.
And we mentioned film quotes earlier, but do
Yeah.
you have you picked up? Do you use any quotes on a regular basis that you fall back on that relevant to business or life in general?
I mean, that one I said before, the Billy Connolly one, which is there's no
Yes,
such thing as bad language, it's just bad use of language.
yes,
And when you um I think about the things like that, it's like this allows you some sort of ability to break out of the norm.
yeah,
And if you can reach for something like that, then I think it's key. I find it like people not being themselves, I find sometimes quite an issue. Not an issue, that's the wrong word. I find that you can see when people are putting on this business airs and graces. I'm like, just have a conversation with me. Doesn't matter what your bad language is that you use. Because I go into like agencies and companies, and behind when they're off the calls, it's like the thick of it. Everyone's just effing this and effing that. And then they get on a call and they're like, oh dear, well, this has happened. It's like, just be yourself because people will resonate with it. So yeah, I
yeah,
think that's probably the one of the bigger ones. Basically don't be scared of saying the thing that you think.
yeah,
Do it. There is a responsibility of speech that comes with the freedom of speech. So don't be a
yes,
dick about it. But if something's happening and you need to communicate in the clearest possible way, then use whatever language you can to be clear.
yes, yeah.
There's
I'd
probably a
agree.
million other film quotes, but most of them for me are like ones of Christopher Walken talking about having a watch up his ass. I'm like, that's different. It's just quite like that quote. But I can't really attribute it to business in any way.
Just a quote you like. Yeah, that's fair enough.
What you like, man. You sit there and go, I really like that. Can I attribute it to business? Like, it's probably best that you don't, really.
Yes. Uh, yeah, I think one of my favourite quotes from a film that I think is quite relevant to. I think you were talking earlier about keeping an eye on cash and things is, and obviously they're running the season at the moment, but from the first Godfather film, which is
Yeah.
Don Corleone likes to know bad news fast.
Yeah.
And
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I think business that's
In
right.
fact, that's beautiful. I say to the devs and the creatives all the time at work, is like, can fix almost anything if you give me enough time.
Yep.
But if you don't give me any time to fix it, try and cover things, it's gonna basically you're making everything worse.
Yep.
So just speak to us as fast as you can and we can fix it. It's probably very apt to the Godfather quote, right?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, there's other ones like follow the money, find the truth, and The Wire. You're like,
Yep.
you don't hide from your cash. Like, don't hide from it. You can separate yourself from it, but the truth of what your business is doing
Yeah.
will be in that money, will be in that cash flow as well sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other ones are like, nobody needs like I am Batman as a quote to put to business, right?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure that one.
It's not going to fit, right? But I mean, you give it a go. Like, if that's
Let's
you
do
put that
it.
on your website, I am Batman. It's like, well, he's insane.
Well, the only place I could see it working is what we call a pattern interrupt, which is you actually interrupt the pattern of somebody's thinking by saying something that just
I am
totally.
Batman, right?
Yes.
Do you have? Is this a common thing? Because I think it's a common thread. Pattern interruption things are like go through everyone's head. I think all of the time, and
Yep.
I think there's almost like a psychopath test where you're sitting in a meeting with a client and they go, "Do you want a drink?" Yeah, I'll have a coffee or I'll have a tea or whatever. Are there moments in your head where you just want to throw the coffee at the wall? I think these are key things. You don't do it, but you just sit there and think that's a pattern interruption. You just go like, I don't know, throw this coffee out the window. Right? Apparently that's quite a common thing, but I've only ever met myself that knows it.
That people want to throw the coffee out the window, or
What,
that.
throw the coffee out the room? What, you're sitting in a meeting, maybe it's because you feel like a rat in a cage, but you sit there and you're just like, what would happen if I got up and threw this coffee against the wall? I think that's quite a common thing.
I couldn't comment. I don't know.
Probably cut all that bit out then.
Yes, I'll just make a note of that one.
Yeah, Stuart talking about in the middle of meetings throwing coffee against the wall is probably a bad idea, but yeah,
It would be a pattern interrupt. So like if somebody's just not getting it or is just running that pattern, throw the coffee
just
against the wall.
sideswipe the whole thing. I am Batman. Throw your coffee against the wall and then sit back down and go, What were we talking about?
Absolutely.
You'd be like instantly, I suddenly looking for a new job on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
No capes required, which I think is one of the quotes on your website. So,
yeah.
what would you say, Stuart, that you've learned about yourself as you've developed your businesses?
Um, ah, what a good question. It's yeah, that is a big old question. Your capacity to deal with chaos and project an outwardly calm, like look, is
Yes.
quite because ultimately, like I think there was a time when I started the business that every single micro thing that happened to me, I would panic about.
Yeah.
But when you run businesses and they're working with big companies that want stuff all the time, like you can't panic about every micro conversation that's happening. Like we had a conversation, an email came through before for one of our parts of Invoke. We've got this AR part of Invoke where you can look at your products in the real world, right? The client's come back and gone, oh, I found a bug. It crashed a few times on this device. Back in the day, I would instantly be like, we need to fix this. We need to make that person, that individual, the happiest person in the world. And
Yeah.
so you need to step back and go, hang about, this might be a bigger problem that is affecting something somewhere else as well. And if we fix this problem, how many other problems is it going to create?
Yeah.
Because when you make things, when you develop things, it isn't, you can't leap to things all the time. You have to have some sort of a path and an identity for what the tech's going to be. And it
Yeah.
might be just a single use case. But 10 years ago, I'd crap myself. I'd be like, does it not work? And you think, no, it works. It just might not be being used correctly. And then maybe I actually have to help that person and train them how to use it in the right way
Yeah.
rather than me going like, holy shit, it's broken.
Yeah.
So that's probably it. It's like, is every single micro issue a big issue? Well, no, it's not. And I think it took a long time to be like, look, we'll be fine because we're good at what we do
Yeah.
and we deal with problems in quite an efficient way.
Yeah.
That was probably the big. Oh, the other, I mean, realistically, the other thing is you don't have to literally do everything yourself. Like,
Yeah.
go and fucking find other people to do it because you're just going to have a massive stroke if you keep trying to do it yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the nuts thing is, I mean, I think Brian Tracy talks about the most successful organizations are the ones where most people spend most of their time doing the three things they really love and they're really good at,
Hmm.
and find somebody else to do the rest.
Yeah.
And you know, and the thing is, it's like a virtuous thing, isn't it? It's like, you mean I could be most effective if I just do the stuff I like and I'm good at? It's like,
Yeah.
whoa. And
Yeah.
yet
Exactly. Right.
it's sort of, oh no, but I've got to do some of the crap stuff because
Yeah.
that life shouldn't be this much fun.
But it's good all the time. I think for when you're doing the business thing, it's important to know the aspects of your business and like how it
Yes.
runs. And I think I found working with people that have had startups or companies, they're trying to do tech in some way, and they don't understand the tech or they don't want to understand the tech. So they sit there and go, "No, I don't do that. I just do this bit." It's like, well, how are people going to believe in you if you don't understand the fundamentals of how the product
Yeah.
works?
Yeah.
And I'm not a developer, right? I can't
Yeah.
sit and code anything. I've tried, and it's really, really hard, right?
Yes.
So I don't do that. What I do is I try and understand if I'm going to ask somebody to do something, I need to have some sort of an understanding of how long that thing's going to take to do and what I'm asking that person to do. So
Yep.
that means understanding the tech, understanding how the tech works. I might not know how to do it all, but you've got to be connected to your business. As it
Yes.
grows and gets bigger and bigger, your CEO role could be way more alien to that. So you have to have people underneath you that you trust are doing that so they can feed the information to you in the right way. We're not that big yet. So we're not at that bit where I need somebody else to tell me. We're looking at certain roles to fill. We've got an eye on the head of product and they would focus on it and feed the information to me. But as a start, when you're starting something, don't ever be like, oh, well, that's not my bit over there. It's like, you better
Yeah.
know it because people buy off people who believe in stuff. So,
Yeah. I think it's about. I mean, I often talk to people about mastering it enough to ask better questions of the people that are actually doing it. So
Yeah.
the danger is you end up doing it, and that's not good use of our time.
Yeah.
But we need to know enough to ask those great questions about how's it going, what's going wrong.
Yeah.
It's a fine balance, but
if something comes in and it's not right, something's not going in the right direction, and you're going to ask a group of people to do something, you better be prepared to, when they say it's going to take 2 weeks, you're like, I know it's only going to take a week. So what are the other 7 days for?
yes.
And you better have a good answer to me, because I know this. I know how long the thing takes, and I think it makes it sound like you're in a constant battle with your staff. Like, you're not. You're a team together. And some people will always want more time for things, especially with development, because things need more time. But I'm like, can we put a customer's hat on for a moment and go, they need it in a week, not 2 weeks. So can we do it in a week? Because from my understanding, it's completely doable. Have you got a different look on it?
I think once we know what we need to achieve, the how question really works. How do we get it done in a week? And that allows people to go, well, actually, perhaps we don't need to add those bells and whistles. Or whatever it might be.
Problem solving, right? If you do it together, and you sit and go, like, we're doing a project at the moment. I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to say who it's for, but we've got a challenge right now where they want to use a certain type of controller with the project that we're doing, and it doesn't 100% fit the bill.
Yep.
Because of an issue that the controller's got. So the conversation was, oh, well, we can't use it. I was like, hang about, let's have a conversation before we commit to we can't use it. Is it worth saying, if we do this to it, will it work? And people go, I don't know. It's like, well, let's take a moment to check it.
Yeah.
So that when you go and speak to your customer, you know exactly you've anticipated all of their problems as well.
Yeah.
There's a thing called this is when I get business wanky now, and I do apologize, but there's a thing called Bayes' theorem. I don't know if you ever heard of Bayes' theorem before. It's a mathematical equation.
Okay.
Right. This is where, like, in the wanky business bit, this is the bit where I go, like, I've been said, I don't do any of that stuff. Here's one that I do. Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So there's a mathematical equation about perceived probability called Bayes' theorem. Yeah. I'm probably going to mess this all up as an explanation. There is a brilliant video on it by a YouTube channel called Veritasium that explained the theorem, how it, at its core, what it does is it's used to manage things like your spam filter in your email, right?
Right.
It takes everything you've learned and then re-asks the question again, essentially. So you have a question and you go, I don't know what the answer is. Yeah. And then it applies all of this knowledge in this space to then ask the question again to come up with a more sophisticated and complete version of the answer. And that's how a spam filter works. And what I was told, or I sort of learned from observing this a little bit, was that at its core is called perceived probability. Can you perceive the outcome of something based on all of the experiences you've had before? It seems simple. It seems like common sense, right? But a lot of people take the thing in the moment and can't apply their experience fast enough. And that gives them, therefore, an uneducated answer to the thing.
Yep.
The way it works is, the way it was explained, you have 100 people, right? And they're all tested to whether they've got a serious illness. And from those 8 people, you have to take into account the false positives that you will get. Let's say 8 people come back with a positive response, right?
Yeah.
So that you have got a 8 in 100 chance, whatever it is, of having this disease.
Yeah.
But you've got some false positives in there. So you've gone from 8 in 100. So what you do is you retest those people. Your situation has never changed, but your chance of having that disease has jumped up to something like 88 out of the 8 people that are there. Whereas your perspective on it has not moved at all. The barrier, so you can, without ever having to change, apply some learning to come up with a completely different response that you're more sure about.
Yeah.
And that, I try and use that as a mental note, especially when I don't know the answer to something. It's like, what you're missing is a knowledge base that you then have to go and absorb as much as you can to then answer that thing clearly enough. So it's probably the most businessy wanky thing that I do. And I keep dismissing these things, and I know that I shouldn't do. But that's the thing I've lent for as a crutch when I've gone like, I don't know, so I need to apply this Bayes theorem thinking.
Yep.
There's one last thing as an example of it is that it's if someone believes something 100%, you should probably not try and have a conversation with them about why it's not right. Because they believe something so much, there's no point in what you're doing. So if you go to a flat earthers convention, right, and everyone there goes, the earth is flat, and you go there and go, I'm going to show these people the earth is round. It's like, well, hang about. They all believe it and you don't, and they're 100% on it. So who's actually the idiot in this situation?
Yep.
You for going, not them for thinking it. So you perceive. Anyway, so that's my Bayes theorem. I can send you the link as well to the thing if people want to watch it. That would really help me quite a lot.
I will definitely have a look at that. It's really interesting. I guess for me, one of the things that I do a lot, using the skills we've got when we talk about business, is go in the same way, go back to first principles. What's the first principle? What's the base principle I could use to help me solve this problem? Yeah. And we've got a number of different sort of formulae or things that work. We've got one. I was with a client yesterday talking about changing a client's operating procedures, how they're operating with them.
Yep.
And we got something called a formula for change, how you engage somebody changing their behaviours. And it's a platform. So it tends to work quite well. Goodness. So with all that's going on, what does the future look like for you guys? And what will be the main challenges you face?
Sorry, you froze that. Sorry, you froze there for a minute, Chris. It all went all scrambled.
Okay. How is it now?
It's fine now. Yeah, we're back.
Great. Okay. So with everything that's going on, Stuart, what's the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you face, if any?
There's some things I can't actually talk about in a minute, but there's a lot of things I can talk about. So the platform, and so Invoke and Superla are becoming one entity. That was like the main thing. They're all being joined up together because they currently sit sort of outside from each other.
Yeah.
The plan is that Superla's services will start supporting Invoke even more, because Superla makes these films and animations and games, and Invoke makes product demos. What we've done is, by joining them together, we say give you everything a product deserves. So you come to us and put a product in Invoke, and you get all the virtual demo stuff that you can do with it. But all of your content that you need and require, all the video content, all the images, any digital brochures, digital manuals, whatever you need, can also be generated from that by using the Superla team. So these two things get sort of fused together as a proper marriage, rather than this affair that these two companies have together currently. And we fuse them together and we go like, this is the joined up approach. We then use the learnings of each company to support their clients and their customers. That's been a long old process where I have had to buy people out of companies who I have business partners with, and to bring the reason I have two companies anyway is because I had to buy people out. I want one person to have part of this and another person to have part of that. So it's all been a bit of a mess. We're unifying it all so it's not a mess. So people externally look at it and go like, this looks like the chaotic Stuart kingdom of nonsense. We need to make it go like, no, it isn't. It's a very clear company with a very clear idea and identity.
Brilliant.
And that's probably the biggest, well, it's not the biggest thing. There's a few bigger things on the horizon as well, that I can't talk about right now, but they are hopefully business defining for us going forward.
Brilliant. Well, maybe we can swing by in 6-12 months and you'll be able to tell us what
I will. I mean, this is the thing, the Invoke, this is the great thing about Invoke, right? It started as this tiny company that's in Leeds, and it gives these massive companies the ability to constantly be demoing their products, and you have it with them all the time. I'm like, we're really, really small and really outside the sphere of what this usually is. Hopefully the new things that are coming are going to be able to make us share this thing on a lot broader a scale, which we've not been really able to do. But 6 to 12 months, you'll either be emaciated and dead, or I'll be like, look at my throne that I'm now sat in. Sorry, man. Phone dropped out of my pocket. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be, hopefully we'll kick on to the next level.
Brilliant. Well, very best of luck
Cheers.
look at that. And what would you say, Stuart, to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now?
You'd never be dismissive with this stuff, right? If you've got an idea or you've got a belief that you want to do something, oh dear.
Sorry, mate. I think it's my end.
I lost you.
Yeah, forgive me.
That's all right. You're back there.
Let me ask you the question again, and then I'll get this edited out. Great. Yeah, I apologize. I think it's my end that seems to be weather seems to affect.
It's snowing here in Leeds at the minute, right?
It does affect the weather where I am. So let me ask you that again. Mm-hmm. So, Stuart, what would you say to anyone that's thinking of going into business right now?
Tread carefully, but commit if you're going to do it. I think anybody should try it and see if they have the capacity to do it. I don't think starting your own business is this thing which is quite elitist and can only be done by a few people. I think anybody can do it. I think there are hurdles that you need to get over when you're trying to do it. But the one more than anything else is you need to have a plan and you need to commit to that plan. Yeah. My old man used to say to me, like, it might look really shit. And it might look really, really, you might be like, I ain't going to be able to pay my bills at the end of this month. That's really scary. And you have to work through those if you believe in the idea, because there will be something on the other side. Unless your idea is selling snake oil. But it turns out, right, even those people make money. So just commit.
Thanks for bringing that up again. I really appreciate it.
I can do the full circle all you want, man.
And if you started again, Stuart, is there anything significant that you do differently?
I'd probably try and have more money at the start. I know. I think, is there anything I'd do differently? I'd learn how to code, because that would have been helped me really early on. I went into business with people who long term ended up realized that they were using my ability to generate money to just line their own pockets, and that's something that over time I managed to get myself out of that situation, and then said to myself, you need to be really, really careful. You might think people are giving you advice or they're quote unquote helping you, but look way longer term and go, what is this person going to do for the business in 2 to 3 years? They might be like, I can help you set up a business because I've done it before. And you go down that road, and then after 2 to 3 years, you're like, you ain't doing anything for this business, and I'm grafting on it. So just be careful when you take those baby steps.
Cool. And finally, what would be the best advice you could give to an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do so?
Stop smoking weed. Would probably be the first one. Like, just for the day, stop smoking. It's gonna, like, basic as well. Yeah, don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be all right. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing whatever you're doing, because it's the only opportunity in life where you're not going to have the risk and responsibilities. So just crack on, really.
Brilliant. Great advice. Great advice at any point for anyone in their life, I think. Stuart, really has been fascinating, be educational. Oh,
I lost you there again. Sorry.
Okay, let me just. I'll just go again. Stuart, thank you so much for your time today. It's been educational, informational, exciting. It's been a bit of a whirlwind.
Mate, I tell you, I will get on with anybody, which whether people get on with me is always a challenge, right?
I'm totally cool. It's been brilliant. And just for anyone before we close, anyone like to get in touch with you or the company, what would be the best way to do so?
The best way is always hello at the company. So it's hello@superla.tv. That's superla.tv. And the beauty of that is people will call Superla whatever they want to call it. I rang a client once and said, hi, it's Stuart from Superla. And this person went, it's Stuart from Shoe Parlour. Does anybody need him? I was like, no. And the other one's hello@invoke-demos.com if anybody wants to know any more about the tech side of the business as well. But other than that, LinkedIn's the only space I sort of mess around on. I'm not really very active on Twitter. because I think you're just going to get yourself in trouble on Twitter, so it's best to stay off it.
Brilliant. Well, again, thanks so much. And but yeah, let's catch up 6-12 months, and you can tell us the news about the developments that you're planning at the moment.
Yeah, man, it'd be good.
Cheers. Thank you.